Welcome, welcome, my great and wonderful people of Biafra. I do welcome you this day, and I greet you, I greet you all. Today we'll be discussing on the demolition of Biafran properties, businesses, and then I will talk a little about my experience meeting Dim Odimegwu Ojukwu, the Ikemba of Neri. Thank you so much, Great Biafrans, for tuning in. And before I continue, I would like to borrow words from Nelson Mandela.
The so-called rising sun of Biafra.
I would like to borrow words from Nelson Mandela. What did Nelson Mandela say? He said, in the end, reconciliation is a spiritual process which requires more than just a legal framework. It has to happen in the hearts and minds of people. Let me say it again. Nelson Mandela stated that in the end, reconciliation is a spiritual process which requires more than just a legal framework. It has to happen in the hearts and minds of people. After the Biafran War, they declared that no victor, no vanquish. And then they also made an agreement of reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reintegration of the people of the old Eastern region. They declared that there was going to be a process of reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reintegration of the people of the old Eastern region, which is Biafra. There was no reconciliation, there was no rehabilitation, there was no reintegration. There was this deep-seated hatred for the people of Biafra. And that is why today you see the demolition of the Biafran people, wealth, businesses, properties scattered all over the country. Before I go further to explain, let me play a small clip of a Yoruba pastor to you so that you will get the mindset, the mentality, the plan of these people against the people of Biafra. Listen.
And they said, I was at a meeting a few days back last week, and they said, the Igbos must find a way of checkmating them. I sat there in the midst of them, and the man said, you are not even saying anything. I said, what is the offense? He said, they are bought everywhere in Lagos.
The Igbos, we must find a way to checkmate them. I think this should be Tunde Bakari or something. I don't know the name of this pastor. He said the Igbos, we must find a way to checkmate them. And he asked them, why? They said they are acquiring all the properties. And as such, they are looking for a way to checkmate the Igbos. How do they want to go about checkmating the Igbos? What you see today in Lagos, the destruction of properties of Biafran people in Lagos. I have a reason for calling Biafran people and not Igbo people because some people make mistakes. They will always say Igbo. It's not just Igbo people, Biafran people. Whoever comes from Cross River, from Akwa Ibom, from rivers, all these people who are people of Biafra, their properties are destroyed in all these places where they've built and turned into their homes. Their properties and livelihood have been destroyed.
Everywhere in Lagos, they're buying and buying. And I said, when they came with gun and shot your people, or your people collected money for the purchase.
When they came, did they collect money from your people, or they shot your people and collected those houses at gunpoint? No. What the Biafrans did was to come, ask you if you want to sell your land, you agree to sell your land, you state the price at which you want to sell your land, they pay you that amount, and they acquire your land. So it becomes a legal acquisition of such property. So you hold no right over such properties again. But they are the ones complaining that the Igbos or the Biafrans are taking over their lands and businesses.
Baba looked at me and said, why are you like this? As I'm like that, did your people sell to them? Or they brought gun and said your land or your life? Why don't you learn their industry? Who asked you to sell your land? That was the end of the meeting. If you are going to invite me into a meeting where we are going to move the nation forward, don't pitch one tribe or ethnic nation against the other. It's not going to work for those of us who believe that the best of the North and the best of the South must come together to steer the ship of our nation.
Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg. This is exactly what is going on the ground, but nobody knows. Many people did not. It's not right. That these things you are doing is not right. The people you think you want to friends with do not love you. They think it's a joke. My experience with the great Ojukwu of blessed memory once came to one of the northern states when I was in the north. And he was just going around observing things, and he saw the kind of mansions, the wealth that the Igbo people, the Biafran people have deposited in those faraway lands. And he came to them. He was very annoyed. He was very annoyed with the people of Biafra, and he said to them, if a war breaks out today, are you going to carry your buildings on your head and go back to your father's land? And everybody kept mute. And he asked again, those of you who owns these mansions, these very gigantic properties, how far have you gone with developing your own fatherland? They kept mute. And Ojukwu left that particular state in anger. He did not continue the meeting he came for. He just left there in anger. Nnamdi Kanu came up again and began to preach to the people of Biafra. These people do not love you. Stop doing all your investment there. Take at least 50 to 60% of your investment back home so that whatever happens, you have a life to live. So that whatever happens, you have the protection of your own people, knowing that when you go back home to your people, your business remains intact. Nobody is going to come and destroy your businesses just like that. They didn't listen. Believe you me, that people who are going to die out of frustration, out of high blood pressure, out of one illness or the other, as a result of the demolition of these houses are much. Many are going to die as a result of this. Many are going to be incapacitated as a result of this. Many are going to go into coma as a result of this. If they had listened, at least build a 50% of their wealth in the East, where they will have protection of their own brothers, they wouldn't be in a situation where they cannot survive again. But most person, there was a video I saw of a particular mansion in Kano. If you see this gigantic mansion, an Igbo man owns it. What are you doing with such gigantic mansion in another man's land? Igbo musicians of the old will always say, nwoke m, ị gara ịkụ ihe n'ụlọ mmadụ, onye ahụ chụọ gị n'ụlọ ya, ị ga-eburu ihe ahụ ị kụrụ lawa. If you go planting things in someone else's house, if they chase you away as a tenant, are you going to carry those trees and leave? You will not. You will not. A na-achụ ewu ojii mgbe ihe ka dị, tupu abalị eruo. Chase the black goat when it is day, before it gets to nightfall. Because at night, you may not be able to see that goat. It will blend with the night, and you will find it difficult to find that goat. And that is what we are saying. Make hay while the sun shines. Many persons will feel reluctant. Take proactive measures today. This is going directly to our people living outside the Biafra territory. If you must invest, come back and invest in the Biafra land. Come back and invest in Biafra land, where you know your businesses, your properties, your wealth, whatever you do is protected. Our people will not listen until they fall victim. That is when they will begin to cry. I heard another video of someone shouting that they are going to buy other lands, they are going to do this, they are going to do that. And I was just looking at this video and I was laughing. You don't want to receive sense. Tomorrow you will come and cry. You know, most times is people who have not been affected will feel as though it will not get to them. That is our mentality in this country. You fail to fight for justice. You fail to fight injustice. And when injustice gets to you, nobody will be there to fight for you. If you fail to fight against injustice, when injustice is meted upon you, there will be nobody to defend you or fight for you or bring about justice for you. Our people must open their eyes and see the dangers ahead. When Peter Obi came out to say he is going to come out for 2027 election again, I laughed at him. I laughed. And I asked myself, is this man going to come out again as a Fulani man or as an Igbo man? Because if you are coming out again as an Igbo man, know it today that you are not going to win that election. But they fail to see the realities. They fail to see the reality. They always come out to deceive the people. It is time we took the bull by its horn. Fight holistically for our freedom and gain freedom. That is where we can implement things that are going to be life-changing. We can have this paradigm shift that would enable our people to think right. Because the mentality of the country today has, messed the mentality of our people completely. A new nation needs to be bettered for people to reason like humans, for people to begin to act like humans. we are getting it wrong. We are getting it wrong by not supporting the liberation of Biafra, the restoration of Biafra. Everyone must stand up and fight. And I would like to end this broadcast with this video clip. Just listen to what was said in this clip.
1 years post independence, why was it so brutal? Why did they seem to hate each other so much?
Well, it was never really one, because these were ancient nations as different as the
Negotiations that brought about Timothy Modu, who's published a book on the Biafra War. I'm also joined by Timothy Modu, whose father helped in the negotiations that brought about peace. Let me start with you, Dele. I mean, this was a country that was won for the first 6 years post independence. Why was it so brutal? Why did they seem to hate each other so much?
Well, it was never really one, because these were ancient nations as different as the Scots are to the English and to the Welsh. They became one politically because the British colonial authorities, in the process of constructing empire, put them in the same sack. So that's the reality. Civil war almost is a misnomer because these were different peoples.
Timothy, I think we should be talking about progress now, but has there been progress? Have lessons been learned from that war, from that conflict?
Well, it's interesting that actually we asking the question whether lessons have been learned. It's really a big question for me to sort of answer, because there is no evidence on the ground that the effect of the war or the lessons that people normally learn from war has been learned. And the evidence is there. Otherwise, why would a group of people, even generations that weren't there when at the time of the war? I was a Biafran war child, so I would know. But to imagine that people who weren't born at that time begin to sort of, if you like, agitate and ask questions.
But so you say that, the country, Nigeria, has managed to remain one, or has it?
It depends on whose point of view we're looking at. The word managed. It's probably the way to classify it. But if you then go within the nations that make up Nigeria, the central question will be, how does each nation fare about the after effect of the war? If you look at the Igbos or even the Yorubas, or look at the ethnic minority or other minority groups, and you ask yourself, what's going on now? How do they feel about it? Did they feel that the lessons have been learned from the war, or are there more unanswered questions? My view, to some extent, is that it seems to me that we haven't learned from it. Otherwise, we will not be in the situation where we are now, where every nation in Nigeria is almost now, if you like, agitating for some kind of separation.
Timothy says the country hasn't learned any lessons from this very brutal war. Well, let me just come back. The history leading up to this agitation for secession. Now we can see the same agitations happening again, through MASOB, through IPOB, who are now agitating for a separate country. Was it the same thing that happened back in '66?
Well, 66 was all of a sudden. As I said, it was a defensive move. What's happening now, the theory was that there was supposed to be no victor, no vanquished. And there was supposed to be reconciliation and reconstruction. The reality is that the lessons have not been learnt. Those lives have all been wasted, because we're now back again, full circle, back to a new generation shouting for Biafra. And they're not alone. There are other areas, other ethnic groups. Has not been learned by the victors, in inverted commas, because there's a level of impunity that's.
Now, we have just listened to these comments, and what one can draw from these comments is that, one, we were never one. We were never one. It was just an idea of the British to bring different people with different mentality, different ideologies, different cultures and way of life, and just tag them together and try to make them one, which is not going to happen, which is not going to work. Secondly, is that the Civil War was just a defensive war that the Biafran people had to immediately, embark upon to defend themselves from being annihilated. And at this point, when we are now fighting to restore our own nation, it is expedient to note that people need to support the freedom. People need to understand the importance of being free. People need to know that without being free, the Igbo man cannot amount to something meaningful in this country. Because you have been so subjugated in every spheres of life that your only saving grace becomes Biafra. And as such, I want to encourage everyone listening, and also as this message is going, if it gets to the ears of the Prime Minister, I already know that he knows this, but then whatever areas that have been taken over by the Biafran army should be completely, covered and used, especially the oil-rich areas. Once we take over those oil-rich areas, get independent oil marketers, sell these things, and use the money to finance the struggle. I have mentioned this somewhere sometime in my videos. We need to remind and also enlighten our people to understand that it is a holistic war. Every hand must be on the deck. Every hand must be on deck. You must not sabotage your brother. Forget about these evil people who are IPOB Nigeria. Focus on fighting for your freedom. Biafra first. Peace, unity, progress. Thank you.